few weeks ago on the channel, we talked about which Marvel characters we thought would make exceptional Green Lanterns, and this week we're back by popular demand.
You guys asked for it, so we're going to be placing who we believe would lead each Lantern Corps in Marvel.
Guys, I'm Thomas.
I'm Merlin.
Together, we are the lads of comics.
The comic lads.
You might say.
Some might say.
Some might say.
Mainly us.
And let's get into who we believe would lead each Lantern Corps in the Marvel Universe.
Before we get started, guys, we obviously want to hear your picks. So many different characters to choose from. Do you agree with our upcoming list? Stay tuned to the end of the video to hear all of our choices. And also, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out. Subscribe. Become a fellow lad. Let's get into it.
Alrighty. So, obviously, let's just get this one out of the way. We're going to start with the Green Lantern Corps. I think we're pretty good with our pick from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, our number one spot in that video was Captain America. And a few lads commented saying like, oh, Captain America would be a Blue Lantern. The thing about Blue Lanterns and Green Lanterns is they're so closely intertwined.
Yes.
Like, they literally in the comics power up one another. Like, blue can't function unless there's a green there. It's actually ridiculous.
Which is kind of lame.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Because they're like, oh, well, for hope you need to have willpower, and for willpower you need to have hope. And it's just kind of like, Jeff, dude, what are you doing?
You're getting too much in the weeds.
Exactly. I think we firmly stand behind Captain America as a Green Lantern.
We do, and like not even going by the actual criteria that are required. I just so agree with what you said in our last video where like Captain America is just worthy of all these mythical things from like different universes. Like he just is.
No, literally. Like he'd have the Ben 10 watch, he'd have like, you know what I mean? He'd have any mythical weapon in all of continuity of everything. But yeah, and it's also like not even just that, but who has as much of an iron will for good as Captain America?
Yeah,
in the comics?
For good.
Exactly. We'll get more into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Next up, guys, we're talking about the Yellow Lanterns. Now, Yellow Lanterns deal with the emotion of fear. The main requirement to be a Yellow Lantern is you have to have the ability to instill great fear.
Yeah, and that's why Batman's often depicted as such a great Yellow Lantern contender, because he's always making criminals poop their pants.
And we couldn't think of a character who instills more fear in the Marvel Universe than Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider is literally every criminal's worst nightmare. Like, his penance stare alone, combined with a Yellow Lantern ring,
everyone's finished.
Dude, like, I'm bricked up. Like, my little, like, nerd...
Bricked up?
What?
My little nerd heart gets bricked up thinking about how cool that would be.
Okay, I thought you were going like...
No.
Like, you, like, love fear?
No, just mid-video, I'm bricked up. No, that would be unbelievably cool.
Yeah, if you guys don't know too much about Ghost Rider's penance stare, it's basically this power that he has where, like, if you've done bad shit and he looks at you with the penance stare, you experience all the bad things that you've done. So imagine that amplified by a Yellow Lantern ring.
No, forget about it. Like, he would, no doubt, if he's not leading the Corps, he's at least in the Corps.
Absolutely. Like, he's not only making you experience all the horrible stuff you've done mentally, but he also has an object that allows him to, like, physically bring about all your worst fears right in front of you.
Yeah, and I think it's also implied in several of the comic books that the yellow ring is powered up even more when it's striking fear into people.
100%.
So, like, the more and more he does it, the more and more powerful his ring becomes. Okay, next up, we have the Red Lanterns. So, this one was kind of hard to come to a conclusion on because there's so many characters in both Marvel and DC that are strictly fueled by, like, rage and hatred. Yeah, exactly. But we got down to two characters. I think we're both leaning for one, slightly edging out the other. Edging out the other.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's gut answer and gut reaction to who would be the greatest Red Lantern in the Marvel Universe is obviously Hulk, because he's, you know, just a being of pure rage. But there's something deeper to the Red Lanterns where it's not just untethered rage and anger. It's deep-rooted hatred that makes you a candidate for a Red Lantern.
Yeah, and specifically leading a Red Lantern Corps. If you guys aren't too familiar in the Red Lantern lore, I think most of the Lanterns are just kind of like mindless hate beings that follow whatever the leader tells them to do, in this case being Atrocitus.
Yeah, that's until they, like, go about their, like, Red Lantern baptism in the pool of blood.
Yeah, exactly. But Atrocitus in the DC universe, his whole backstory involves his whole planet being wiped out, and that alone fuels his hate and his rage and his vengeance. And like Atrocitus, he's strictly all about vengeance in that regard, and I feel like for for that reason, Hulk is a good contender, but we're also thinking Punisher.
Yeah, totally, dude. Building off what you said, a Red Lantern doesn't only need to have, great rage in their heart. They have to have been really deeply wronged in the past to have, like, that fire of hatred within them. And I think Punisher, like you said, edges out Hulk in that regard.
Yeah, and it has to be hatred that doesn't ever cease. You know what I mean? Everything that Punisher does to criminals can be linked back to, like, the horrific things that were done to him and his family.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people like to think of Punisher as, like, a pseudo anti-hero, and, like, he's straight up not. Like, he's just a murderer.
No, he is.
And I think that makes him a perfect candidate for the Red Lantern Corps, because they're literally just all about bloodshed.
Definitely. But it's also kind of interesting because the Red Lantern Corps at times have been shown to be like
a bit more righteous.
Yeah, a bit more righteous and have a semblance of like a positive force behind them.
Yeah.
And I think Punisher can still fit into that category if you're talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like for Atrocitus, his whole backstory is wanting to get even with who he believes wiped out his race and his entire planet. And I feel like Punisher kind of fits in that same boat.
Yeah, I feel like Punisher kind of started out his career of vigilantism and murder with that same goal in his mind of like, I need to exact vengeance on the ones that took my family from me. But then it just went over the rails and he just keeps going and will never stop. And I feel like that's endless fuel for a Red Lantern ring.
I think it also ties thematically to a lot of superheroes and why they choose not to kill. Like even for Batman, for example, there's been countless times where Jason Todd has been like, why don't you just fucking kill the Joker, dude? And he's like, no, if I start, I'll never be able to stop, and that emptiness will never be fulfilled. And I think when you do go down that road, which characters like Punisher, like Atrocitus have been, you don't even remember what bodies you've taken.
Okay, guys, next up, we're talking about the Orange Lanterns, the Lantern Corps of avarice or greed. Now look, guys. Look! In our last video, a lot of you were like, what the fuck, man, how is Dr. Doom not one of your picks? And I'm like, okay, yes, Dr. Doom has an iron will, for sure, and has demonstrated that for years and years and years in the comics. But you also have to have a desire to do good to be a Green Lantern. Doom would get the ring and immediately, like, use it to subjugate his people even more, gain shit for himself.
No, he'd put fucking the Guardians in chains or some shit, take over the entire Corps, and even characters like Sinestro, he ends up being a bad guy, but originally he's using the ring to help his own people and get everyone in line.
Yeah, but like fueled deeply by his self-interest and his desire for order. But all that to say, we believe Dr. Doom would lead the Orange Lantern Corps.
100%. Dr. Doom is always depicted as a character that even at the height of his power, it's never enough, and he always wants to rule more and be in charge of more.
He just wants to take and control and be literally the one above all, And another point about Dr. Doom is that, going back to why he wouldn't be a Green Lantern, is that even when Dr. Doom does good things, it's never to do good things. There's always a selfish motive to them.
Yeah, when he does quote-unquote good things, he just happened to do good things in his self-interest.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just a product of whatever his self-interest was.
And even if it's not for his own self-interest, he has to make it about it after. And I'm specifically thinking of a moment when Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman were having their second child. Reed, for reasons that I don't totally remember right now, was not able to be there for the birth of his daughter. So Dr. Doom had to help with the delivery. And when Reed gets there, he's like, oh yeah, dude, it's all good. I took care of it. Your baby's fine. I helped Sue deliver the baby. But I'm gonna name her. Like, I get to name your baby now. And you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and he's like, whenever you say the baby's name or think of the baby,
think of me.
Yeah, you'll have to think of me as the savior of your wife and child.
Yeah, and you're just like, that's so gross.
Yeah, there's a certain level of pettiness of the Orange Lantern Corps that I feel like Dr. Doom perfectly inhabits.
Yeah, and he always wants.
Yeah.
And it's not always physical things that he wants, but he just wants things. He wants to take from people. He wants people to feel subjugated and to feel like they're less than. And I feel like that makes him a perfect candidate to wield the orange ring.
And also, building off of that, I think the orange ring isn't straight up malicious. No. I don't think the orange ring or like Dr. Doom will straight up like kill a baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Like they won't do that. It's
but they'll take the baby.
Exactly. If the baby's worth something, it's getting taken, dude. Alright guys, next up, we're talking about the Blue Lantern Corps. So, in our last video, we mentioned the possibility of Spider-Man being a possible contender for a Green Lantern ring.
Yes.
But upon debating it, and also a few fellow lads commenting in the comments section of that video, we kind of realized that Spider-Man would fit perfectly into the Blue Lantern Corps.
Absolutely. You know, there are so many instances in Spider-Man stories where Spider-Man is about to lose, but he still holds on to a tiny shred of hope within him, and that's always enough to push him that extra mile.
And he's always been depicted as a glass half full kind of guy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Never half empty. Always seeing the positive side of any situation. I think of all the Marvel characters, he might be the most optimistic.
Spider-Man has to have so much hope in his heart because he's in constant turmoil.
And also, a thing that's been depicted as one of Spider-Man's main characteristics is seeing the good in people. And I feel like the main slogan or mantra or whatever of the Blue Lantern Corps is all will be well. And I feel like Spider-Man even takes that kind of mentality with the bad guys that he faces. And you look at characters like the Flash, who actually gets a Blue Lantern ring.
Yeah, he becomes the deputy of the Blue Lantern Corps in Blackest Night.
Exactly. And this is a character that like brings villains Christmas gifts, you know what I mean, on Christmas Eve. And I feel like Spider-Man is kind of in that same branch of just hope and seeing the absolute best at anyone that he goes against or works with.
Alright guys, I'm not gonna lie, I think this one was probably the toughest one for us to narrow down.
Yeah, we spent like an absurd amount of time on different wikis looking at possible characters that could fit into this Lantern Corps.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Star Sapphires / Violet Lanterns. Violet in the DC emotional spectrum is the emotion of love. And like, it's kind of tough trying to think who would lead because we're talking about superheroes. For the most part, they're all really good people, or at least have a lot of love in their heart and a huge capacity for loving and caring about other people. And you know, we could have put a lot of people on this one. We could have put, Jean Grey, could have put Sue Storm for how much she unconditionally loves Reed, even though he's like such a jerk sometimes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we narrowed it down to Silver Surfer.
Yeah, Silver Surfer is a character with a completely tragic backstory. You know, Silver Surfer, he comes from his own planet, and Galactus is actually about to consume the life force of his planet, and Silver Surfer begs him to spare the planet, in exchange becoming his willing servant to find other planets and other galaxies to conquer.
And he gives up being with the love of his life, Shala Bal,
to protect her. Yeah. And that's all out of love.
And ultimately, when he finds the planet Earth for Galactus to consume, he's instantly moved to beg Galactus to spare them, like after the first human that he meets. He meets Alicia Masters, once and future love of Ben Grimm the Thing, and just her teaching him about the human spirit and the human capacity for love and compassion, it moves him so deeply that he begs his master to spare humanity.
Yeah, and that basically leads to him being imprisoned to the confines of Earth. He saved 2 different planets just through his love alone and wanting to save everyone he possibly could.
Yeah, and through saving them, condemned himself twice.
Exactly. Alright guys, we're on to the Indigo Tribe of Compassion.
This is a weird one. Sure. Like the way it works.
It is weird. We're going to be diving into all the lore right now. So the thing about the Indigo Tribe is you might be thinking, oh, it's just a character that has like ultimate compassion. Of course they would lead the tribe. Of course they would be indicted into the Indigo Lantern Corps. It's not exactly the case. All of the Indigo Tribe members are actually like former criminals.
Like sadistic sociopathic murderers.
Yeah, they're all people that have absolutely no regard for human life or emotion.
Or compassion.
Exactly. They're all sociopaths or psychopaths in one way or another. And the Indigo Tribe actually gets these mass murderers and makes them compassionate to everything they've done. They make them self-aware, make them able to feel anything that they've done, to feel this almost sense of huge guilt.
Yeah, it almost brainwashes them in kind of like a Sadman-esque way to feel and experience all the hurt that they've caused and all the pain that they've caused, but not so much in a penance stare way, more in like a purifying their soul kind of way.
Definitely.
But it's still a weird brainwashing thing because it doesn't permanently heal them or alter their mind. Like once they lose the ring, they almost immediately revert back to being like the Joker, basically.
Yeah. And one of the most prominent characters in the actual DC universe that gets an Indigo ring is Black Hand. Now, Black Hand is a character that's so obsessed with death. He has no emotional trigger to it whatsoever. He just wants to cause as much of it as possible.
Yeah, no, he killed his dog when he was a kid, bro, and like stuffed him.
He killed his whole family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Why are we focusing on the dog? No, but literally, and so we kind of use this as a basis of who would be a perfect Indigo Lantern of the Marvel Universe, and we nailed it down to Carnage.
so funny to me that it's Carnage, but it makes such perfect sense. Cletus Cassidy is like maybe the worst person ever.
Thinking about it, he's kind of like Black Hand combined with Joker. You know what I mean? Like, he also killed his family in a lot of different iterations. He like pushed his grandma down the stairs.
Oh, come on.
But then he also has that kind of maniacal
Obsession with death?
exactly, and just wanting to cause anarchy and chaos wherever he goes.
Yeah.
So I think the Indigo Tribe would be just the absolute perfect place for him. And even the leader of the Indigo Tribe is a former criminal herself. And I think someone like Cletus Cassidy, who has like an uncountable amount of bodies.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean?
Because it seems like there's a sort of kind of sentience to the Indigo power battery, where I feel like it sees these horrible, sadistic people and it's like obsessed with making them better. And I think there'd be no one that it would want to turn around more than Carnage. Okay guys, so that's kind of it for the emotional spectrum lanterns. There are still 2 big lantern cores created by Jeff Johns that we've yet to tackle, and the first one we're going to talk about is the Black Lantern core. Now the Black Lanterns are primarily focused on death.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say.
Literally.
They want to kill everything. They want to spread darkness throughout the entire universe, extinguish all life.
Yeah, and the progenitor of the Black Lantern Corps, Necron, is literally kind of like the personification of death in the DC universe, and his ultimate goal is to extinguish all light in the universe and all life. So, our candidate for the Black Lantern leader in Marvel would be Thanos.
He's trying to bang death 24/7.
He's so down bad for death that he got the Infinity Gauntlet, and he kills half the universe.
Just to impress her.
Literally just to impress her. It's not based on, like, balance and, like, I'm the only one that understands.
The universe needs correcting.
Yeah, no, he's like, I want to bang death, so I'm gonna kill half of everyone.
Yeah, and try to impress her.
And she snubs him.
Oh, dude, he gets cucked. Him and
It's
Deadpool.
cucked by Deadpool.
No, literally.
I feel like there really isn't another character in the Marvel Universe so obsessed with death and so capable of dealing it out as much as Thanos.
I mean, all of his character depictions are fueled by either his obsession with death or trying to woo death.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that just makes him a perfect Black Lantern. Alright guys, we are down to the last Lantern Corps. The Lantern Corps of Life.
Yeah.
The White Lantern Corps. How many times can I say Lantern Corps?
Lantern Corps. And we kind of had some trouble narrowing this one down because I feel like there's kind of like a discrepancy in the DC universe about like what exactly makes a White Lantern candidate. Because when they first created the White Lanterns in Blackest Night, it's all about, you know, who is like the greatest champion of life. But then when they expanded upon it in the New 52, Kyle Rayner is trying to become a White Lantern.
By mastering all the Lantern Corps.
Yeah, and they established that the only way to become a White Lantern now is to first master all the 7 rings of the emotional spectrum, which I'm like, you could just write anyone to go down that path depending on who you want to write about, you know? So I feel like we're not going to go based on that so much and more based on who embodies life the most in the Marvel Universe. My initial thought went to Phoenix, Jean Grey, but like with the Phoenix Force, obviously, because as we know in the Marvel Universe, the Phoenix Force is kind of the personification or the embodiment of all life in the universe, and that's kind of what the White Lanterns are all about.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix in this case would be almost like the entity itself, and Jean Grey would be the wielder of that power.
Exactly. And I also feel like in terms of power scaling, it correlates pretty well because the entity is literally the embodiment of life in the DC universe, and it's like all powerful and, you know, like can do whatever, and so can the Phoenix. You know, it's this nebulous cosmic force that we can't really explain or understand. It's unimaginably powerful, and it's all about life.
Definitely.
But that's just our picks for this video, guys. Let us know if you have any different thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, become one with the lads, and we'll see you next week.
We love you.
We love you dearly.
Peace.
Peace.